Rain's coming down, falling like tears on stony ground. Thunder clouds rise overhead, raw emotions messing with me. Here we go, here we are, here we stay, inside our history. Fly the moon to the stars, live your days, set your spirit free.
What is community? Community isn't just a bunch of different people thrown randomly together into a small area living together. It's more than that. It's a shared vision, a shared purpose, a shared spirituality. Trouble is, when we get into these communities, we often put up these walls and live behind them. And they may protect us, but they also stop us from seeing further. And are these not just an obvious metaphor for the walls that we build up in our mind? These walls that prevent us actually meeting the other, seeing across the wall and seeing the other people that we're not so different from. And what makes a community? Oh, you live in a very tight-knit community. What is it that makes communities? What brings people together? Is it a shared vision? Is it a shared belief?
Shared vision, common values, good food. Look, we do have ours is a particularly strong, close-knit community, maybe because we're smaller. You know, that also helps. It's interesting, the Hebrew term for the synagogue is not synagogue, it's Beit Knesset, which means literally a house of assembly. Meaning it's a house of gathering, of disparate people joining forces and coming together in a common goal, common vision, common aspirations, and a common humanity.
How can we know the divine if we don't know the other? So the way to the divine is empathy with the other. Is when the two spirits, if you will, touch each other. You know, the breath of God that I have inside of me touches the breath of God which is inside of you, that the spark, that, you know, it illuminates. So there's no other way. You've got to be engaged with the other. Why should we do things alone which we can do together? We can, you know, increase our capacities. We can inspire each other. And, you know, in the end, this is what we want to build, you know, a world community, love and peace and compassion. And so for me, the litmus test, as I said, of a good religion is the extent to which the rituals and the beliefs of that religion enables you to reach out to other religions and even people of no religion.
Born in King Williamstown to a poverty-stricken family, Ella Mululo dropped out of school to help out at home. She was approached by a Baptist pastor and converted. With the help of a newly found Baptist community, she turned her life around for the better. What's your interest in community? Why are you so interested? Why are you so excited about community?
One is because community is me. And I am the person I am because of the community. My parents were alcoholic, and I never had time to go to university. And I dropped out of school when I was 16 because there was nobody to pay for my education. Then one of the missionaries from the community came and he shared the gospel with me, and I was converted. I became a Christian.
Had you been going to church before that at all?
No, I was not.
So what did he say that was so powerful that made you convert?
He was talking about God's love, telling me about how God loves us and what God did for us, that he sent Jesus Christ to die for us and then to build again that relationship between human and God, and I was not aware of that. So I realized, coming from the broken family, never have the relationship with my siblings, I realized I do need the love of God, which is different and it's unconditional. And when I became a born-again Christian, I joined the church, which was the Baptist church. Then after I joined the Baptist church, and then people from the church prayed with me, because really things were not going well at home. Because when I need food, there was no food. When I needed to go to school, I couldn't go to school because all the money was going to the ship-ins.
How did you get out, or how did you get off the farm and break out of that cycle?
Some people in the church helped me to go back to school, and they were giving money so I can go and finish my education in high school. And that time I was 24 years, and I complete my matric when I was 25 years.
And why do you think they helped you? Had you been going a lot? Had you built relations with them? Or do you think it's just what people in your church community do?
It was my first church to go to, and they teach the word in such a way you really want to experience that in your own life. So I think these people, they were feeling the same, the families, they were like, okay, this is what we can give towards her life so that she can go further with education. Because they did know I was so wished to get my high school education.
To the stars, live your days, set your spirits free.
On this journey of mine, I'm still somewhat mystified, because all the people that I've met so far, out of all the faiths and religions, they all seem to espouse peace, harmony, empathy, compassion. And yet, we seem to get it so wrong. Why is that? Maybe we're not ready to deal with difference.
As we sail across the
Zane Beaker is a South African singer-songwriter who has achieved international success as a performer of Islam Nasheed songs. Many of his songs represent different times in his life and the lessons he has learned through personal experience.
all we need to smile at each other, wish for your brother, help one another. All we need is love.
When I was growing up in Lodium, in Pretoria, there was always this rivalry between Lodium, where I grew up, in Johannesburg, you know, the kids, you know. So it was mostly based on very silly things. So, but there was always this thing that I came from Lodium, I came from Joburg, or I came from Lenasia, or, you know, Roshni, or
The whole
whatever.
west side, east side.
It wasn't very on a big scale, but it did exist, you know. There's some level of antagonism, you know. And it was because of that my friend got shot. And we were both 19 at the time. And that's quite a shock to your system, you know,
Yeah.
because you know, up until that point in my life, I never really lost anyone that was close to me, that was young. But that was the first time that, you know, death made really, you know, an impact on me, it applied to me in a very real sense.
All we need to honor our mother, shelter our sisters, alter our existence. God's help will come from us.
How did you put that into the context of your faith, and how did that help you deal with it?
The thing I turned to most was my music. So I started writing songs. I started writing about losing a friend. I wrote a song called I Remember Your Smile, because when I visited his mom, and he was the only son, and his mom said that, you know, out of everything, I miss his smile the most, you know. So I wrote a song called, you know, I Remember Your Smile. And I think I poured myself into my creativity, and I used, you know, this experience as a catalyst to start writing songs.
Let's say you were born into your own religion, but into your parents' religion, but you kind of ultimately got to find your own way. Did you ever have any doubts about Islam and that way of faith?
Every individual makes a decision to live a certain way. So even though we inherit perhaps some moral grounding or whatever from how we grew up, but I think at some point we make a decision. And I think it was at that stage in my life where I said, hold on, so if we can die at any stage in our lives, you know, my friend was 19, and you know, so what's the purpose of us being here? You know, if we can leave this world at any point in time. And I think it was at that stage when I looked back and I said, well, there has to be a greater purpose, that surely it cannot end when we die. And one of the fundamentals of Islam and many other religions, I think Christianity, Judaism, is life after death, and accountability and reward, and, you know, and living, that this life is short, it's a test, and the life to come is eternal. So I think I clung on to that belief that this life is just a short space of time that we're here, and God has given us certain blessings, and it's up to us to make the most of those blessings in a useful way, useful for the world, and we will be accountable.
Root cause of violence is stress and mistrust.
And stress comes from?
Too much to do, too little time and too little energy. And not confidence, there's no confidence about one's ability to see through the work that one wanted to do.
I think everybody in the world actually knows the answers to all the problems, but we tend to forget about them or just leave them. Why is that? I mean, have we become so desensitized? Is the press and media actually desensitizing us to all this stuff?
To some extent that's true. People are getting desensitized. Every day they find there is famine, every day there is war. Then you just shut your eyes towards it and mind your own business. But I tell you, at the same time, there's a lot more awareness than before. The expression of human values is also on rise.
Random acts of kindness has suddenly become a buzzword. Why on earth should anybody be motivated to do a random act of, what did you do for me lately? Why must I do any random act of kindness? You know, if you're going to be selfish and self-centered, why? Again, I come back to my saintly teacher who was interviewed by CNN. One day, a guy rocked up and put a microphone in front of Rabbi Schneerson, a blessed memory, and said, "Rabbi, what is your message for the world?" And he said one line. He said, "We should try and do a little bit extra goodness and kindness." If every person in the world did a little bit, don't change the whole world, do a little bit extra act of kindness. Be a little nicer today.
The big answers always seem quite simple.
Simple
They're the big
truths.
questions. Or
Simple truths, simple truths. But can you imagine the groundswell and how that would cascade into a global healing?
With the help of her Baptist community, Ella started a new life in Knysna, and partnering with her friend Penny Manwaring, started a township tours business introducing tourists to the Knysna townships.
Because of what I have experienced and what God has done in my life, which is it's a radical change, coming from where I come from and becoming a businesswoman, there was a big passion in me that I need to do something and give back to the community, back to people. And Penny and I, we sat down and we discussed it, and we decided to start projects. And we started a soup kitchen here in my house. My kitchen used to stop there. It was a small kitchen. And I started with 2 children from the neighbor. And then now I think the word of mouth started to spread, and we ended up having 15 children. And then the second one was the safe house for abused women and children, which is my biggest passion. And it changed my life a lot. Every time I sit down with these children and talk to them, to encourage them, and some of them really, they're coming from very serious background whereby they don't know their parents. And in my spiritual life, looking at them changing, and I see the hand of God which work in my life, working in their lives too. And I start to trust God more because I can see a brighter future for the young people, because my passion and my heart is with young people. And I believe the word of God is the answer in their lives. If God can change my life to where I am today, to be a respected businesswoman, coming from being a farm girl, from an alcoholic family, looking at these kids, there are more opportunities because I live during the apartheid time and they live in this era. So
It's also you.
This is
It's
their
not
time.
all God, it's you as well, with his help.
Yeah, so I believe strongly there's a big thing that will happen, and by the time I leave, I will be in peace with my soul, because there will be a seed that I'll leave behind, because the man who planted the seed in me, he passed away. But I live his legend, the word of God that he left with me. And I believe they're all gonna be the same.
Social expectation drowns us all inside.
Since his return to South Africa in 2009, Zane has actively pursued projects closer to home, especially with regards to youth programs, and is dedicated to socially uplifting disadvantaged communities.
This is who I am, this is me. Nothing, everything, can't you see who I am? Just let me be, 'cause like it or not, God loves me.
If you look at the challenges that face young people, and if you look at, for example, whether it's society, the problems that face society across all religions, whether it's HIV/AIDS, whether it's poverty, whether it's drug abuse, whether it's domestic violence, I feel as a person who's involved in music or songs or shows, I think I could use these platforms, use these songs to bring about social change, even though it's in a small way. So I think we need to be aware of popular culture. We need to be aware of the effect it has on young minds. You know, young people, it's amazing how important something like music is in their lives. It's amazing when you see young people get together, teenagers, one of the first few things they will speak about is music. They will say, oh, what song do you have? Or, you know, what are you listening to?
Kind of defines you.
And it defines you socially. If they find a song that nobody else has, they feel exceptionally proud of it, and they take ownership of that. So if we can take the medium of song, put it into a very appealing way, and transmit a positive message, then I think we can bring about social change. And if you look at, it might not happen on a big scale, but in a small scale, you know, people's hearts can change, and they say the heart speaks to the heart. And I believe when you do something sincerely, there's blessings in that.
To the stars, live your days, set your spirit free. Feel the rain, it's coming down, falling like tears on stony ground.
The trouble with journeys like this is that you're meant to have a Damascus moment. And I think my road to Damascus moment is maybe not having a road to Damascus moment. Despite seeing the benefits of organized religions, I don't think I'm feeling entirely converted or on the way to that at the moment. Cynicism is fairly strong, but despite that cynicism, I do see the benefit of organized religion and what these people are doing.
A person is a person, and they come with their religion, whatever they look like and all that. And that is not the important thing, it's a person. And you accept the person as the person is, instead of condemning, which is what we do. And we say, well, that person, and you isolate. And once you begin to isolate, that is when the problem arises. You don't tolerate, you respect.
How's the community here? I mean, do other people feel the same way you do? I mean, do you live in a very special kind of giving community, or are you maybe infecting other people around you with your goodwill, and they may be coming to see things your way, or most people quite selfish and they look after themselves?
I can say it's 50-50. You know, there are people who's about me, and there are people who said, okay, us. I tried my best to share what I'm doing with other people. And sometimes people think it's about money, but I think it comes from the heart. That is how you give. It starts from there. If you don't have a good heart to give, even if you give thousands of money because you got a lot of money, it doesn't make sense because it's not coming from the loving heart. It has to start with love. So if you don't love yourself, it goes back now how the community react. If people don't take care of themselves and they don't love themselves, they won't be able to love other people. To me, it started with me when God came in my life, and then I started to see myself in a different way, stop to want to be like somebody else, but to accept the way I am and do the best out of it. And then I was able to love other people. And to be honest, I'm crazy in love. I love anybody. When I see people, the less people that people will love is the person I love more. And it's not that I want, it's something I think of in my head, but it just comes naturally. And it's not about who you are. It's not about where you come from. It's not about what you got, but it's about what you want to be and what you want to do. And it's always has to affect other people which are around you. It's not about only you, but there are people around you. So if it's happening to you, what you want to be, and then you have to show them what they want to be, they are able to do it.
I suppose I'm a bit of a misanthropist, but occasionally you meet somebody like Ella and she really restores your faith in humanity. Just doing the work she does and seeing the effects on the ground and the people around her and what she does to them, it's amazing and really does restore your faith completely.
It does seem like such an obvious thing, you know, to not cheat people and to be nice to your neighbour and to keep family ties. Why do you think at the moment we have such a breakdown in society?
I think every human being is born with what we call fitra, which is a tendency to do good. That's why most people in the world follow the rules of the road. For example, most mothers look after their children. You know, you unfortunately have bad elements, but most people are inherently good. And because we're born with a fitra towards God consciousness and towards a moral compass. I think as the world, you know, just my personal opinion, it happens to me as well. You know, we get sidetracked by the world and by chasing material things, and sometimes at the expense of our moral values. And I think also, you know, like human beings have the capacity to do good, we also have the capacity to do terrible atrocities. It's just that sometimes it just depends, like Rumi said, you know, it just depends which beast you want to feed, you know. Do you want to feed the one towards good or the one towards bad, you know. And I think in a society where we have possibly come a long way in terms of technological advancements, but I think we've possibly taken out a little bit of our humanity, where we've forgotten that, you know, for example, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that, you know, a believer should never have any of his neighbors hungry while he eats. A simple thing like that. You know, and a neighbor means 7 households on either end, you know. And he said, none of you shall be believers until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. So these simple things, which is the message of Jesus, message of any religious basing, that you have to look at your fellow human beings. And I think, you know, art is taking a piece of your soul and putting it into something and saying to the world, this is who I am. And most people may not really understand your experiences, but they will always understand your emotion, because we are all human beings and we're bound by emotion.
I think that's where I find God as well, within myself. When I think that's where people do, actually. You get in touch with God when you actually kind of in the zone.
Yes.
You forget yourself and you just kind of, you produce art and great things.
Yes. I think it's a reflection. You're absolutely right. It's a reflection of God's inspiration, and then you realize that you are a gift to this world. You know, you are a moment in time that's never going to be repeated.
To the stars, live your days, set your spirits free. Here we go, and here we are, here we stay.
Clearly age doesn't matter. Today, I meet a couple of Gogos who started an organization called the Mavela Project, which they help set up and run with the community. The Ikaya Mavela Project was started in June 2002 with the help of Paddy Meskin and the local chief's daughter, Gertrude Nkobo. The purpose of the creche was to ensure that older siblings in child-headed households would be able to continue their schooling, knowing that their younger siblings were cared for and given the proper nutrition and health care.
Many of us grew up with very little. I didn't come from a wealthy home. In fact, when I was in Standard 7, I was very poor. My father got TB. He was in hospital for a year at King George V. And we had to do all sorts of things to help. We lived in council house. I left school early and did my matric later because I needed to help. And I think sometimes when you've had an upbringing where you've had to struggle, you have two things. The one, you remember that struggle, and when you actually achieve, you want to give back. The other is that when you have children of yourself, you don't want your children to struggle. You want to give. But in giving, you sometimes lose the fact that it's important to give, that it's important in your life to give. All the people who work with me, we're just ordinary people. We're not particularly brilliant. We're not particularly rich. Most of us are average middle-class people. In my community here, many of my people are gogos. They're 60, 75. The head of our organization, 75 years old. She's looking after 11 orphans. She runs the whole program.
Why did you feel the need to start this project or get it rolling?
You know, this project to me, I don't know how can I explain. Because myself, I'm also an orphan. I lost my parents when I was small. I don't know my mother actually. And another lady where was my mother was working. She was a domestic there, and that lady taking me over. My mother passed away when I was 18 months. And that lady taking me over said, no, you can't stay with your father. I'll look after you until about 14 to 13 years. So when I was 13 years, I started to come here in our rural area. That's why I was Philip donated this land and to take it over with this project, because I was thinking about myself, that I've grown up without a parents. So with HIV, I know most of the children haven't got parents. They only grown up with grannies. Sometimes after grannies they drink, they don't look after the child. So that's why I said, no, I do like this project for myself.
One of the most important parts of living a proper life, of feeling good about your life, is doing more than just worry about yourself. When you go out and you help somebody, you do something good, it comes back to you 1,000-fold. For every single thing that I have done in my nearly 70 years, I have got back 100-fold. And that's what people don't realize. People say, oh, I don't want to get involved, I haven't got money, I'm poor, I'm this. You know what? The poorest people are the ones who give the most, because they give of themselves. It's easy to write a check. It's a very different thing to actually give of yourself.
Growing up as a farm worker, Wendy Pakur realised that there was more to life than just working for a minimum wage. Together with her community of farm workers, she started a workers' union called Sikile Sonke to fight for their human rights and a better quality of life. You came from quite an abusive background as well, is that right? You you had quite a hard upbringing with your family. How did you overcome that? I mean, how did you get to where you are now, and how come you're not still picking grapes?
Yeah. When I was 8 years old, I had a dream and I thought of becoming a social worker. And when I was 12 years old, I thought I'll become a policewoman. And when I was a teenager, I thought I'll be a journalist one day. But I didn't become one of it. You know, I didn't professionally go and study it in university because I ended up working on a farm, on a fruit farm. That was my first job after I'd matriculated. That's actually where some of the political awareness came, where I became aware of the inequalities between farm workers and farm owners, where I became aware that farm workers have been working for many years, for generations and generations, still earning the lowest wages, still not having decent housing, still not treated like human beings. And then I thought, but it's not right. Something must be done about it. And that's how I became involved in terms of working with farm workers, being a farm worker myself, and thought, but something must be done and we must lead efforts for change in our own lives as well.
What does Sikula Sonke mean, if I'm saying it correctly?
Yeah, Sikula Sonke means we grow together. Yes, and it was really the workers, the farm workers that were part of the union growing together. Because if you look at the workers, they were all uninformed. They didn't know their rights, were never part of unions. They never had security, you know, like in terms of work security, in terms of housing and all of that. And then all of us were learning at a pace that was comfortable, because now for the first time, the workers were starting their own union, a very big thing for the workers in the union. And then as we were growing, we were learning together. We learned how to run a union. We learned how to grow as a collective. We learned how to grow as one, where not one's voice is bigger than the other, one is above the other, but where everybody is equal and where everybody's voice is important in the union.
And what's that actually done to the community? How does it pull it together or kind of unify it?
We've been working on about 300 farms as Sikula Sonke. And on farms where there was better conditions, there wasn't much drinking, you won't find fetal alcohol syndrome, you won't find men beating their wives, you would find the respect in communities working together. So you can really see when people are treated with dignity, you can see how they respond to that. But when there's no When people live in appalling conditions, when people are evicted or there's nowhere to go, when you are ill-treated, there's really no dignity in it. And that's where you can see where there's almost no quality of life for people that don't care. All these things are happening when you see a farm where the quality of life is not the same as the farm where there's good practices, as the farm where workers are treated with dignity, with respect, where there's good relationships between the farm owners and the workers. You can see the differences in that.
I think society has become greedy. I think we've become, the way we've moved as a society, it's all about wealth and greed and keeping up with the Joneses, and we've lost the core values.
Where do you get these core values from? I mean, is it from your parents, and you need your parents to expose you to good values?
No, I think it's circumstances. It can be teachers, your neighbours. For me, our neighbours, the parents, played an important role in. I would go there and we'd chat as kids with the parent, and so it's parents, neighbours, teachers, and the wider family. And so I think there's so many people, and I think that's what's important in life, is that whoever you are, you take an interest in other people around you. You never know who you can influence.
The reason why we want child-headed households is because we want to create family structures. One of the major problems for children today is that there are no proper family structures. And one of the most important things in the whole spiritual concept and the whole concept of growing up and having knowledge and values and ethics and things like that is through the family. And one of the most important things about your spiritual values and your values of worth as a person is that you have to know what's right, what's wrong. You have to understand how to live in society. And if you've not been taught that, you can't. So by creating a house where there's somebody to help guide them, where they are able to rely on one another, where there's a whole support system. We do not understand, if you've never not had support system, you do not understand how these people who don't have a support system have a huge emotional and mental problem. So that's one of the reasons why this is happening, to try and provide that support system, to try and give them the comfort of a family, and to give them the common values that we all need. Because you don't have to be very religious or spiritual or anything, but you all need those basic common values.
In 2011, Wendy Pakur left Sakila Sonke, and with the knowledge she'd gained there, started her own organisation called Ubuntu Rural Women and Youth Movement. She focused on training and educating women and youth in health matters and improving their quality of life by starting communal food gardens. Would you consider yourself as a spiritual person?
I do consider myself as a spiritual person, yes.
And how do you express that?
I think in my daily work, in what I do, in going out, believing in the collective, believing in people, not a them and a us, but believing that we are all equal and that we have to care for each other. It's like the principle of Ubuntu, I am because somebody else are. I have because somebody else have. And I think all of that, the way we do, the way we connect, the way we believe, the way we come together, all of that is part of spirituality.
Now you're talking about food security as well, and getting land for people to actually start cooperatives and things like that. How's that going to work?
Yes, we started the food garden. It's our second food garden in Klapmuts. It's 300 square meters where the women grow organic crops, and it's very beautiful. The garden is very beautiful. It's commitment in the women there every day that really, you know, you can see how beautiful the land looks. You can see the plants coming up and all of that.
Is this something you'd set up in various communities, or?
Yes, we with the food gardens. We've got one at the school where the school availed some of the land for us to plant, and then we've got a household food garden.
How can we expand this whole idea? Because it's a great idea. I mean, the school have been very generous and they've allocated you some land. Could have been more, but it's something.
Yes.
And it can grow.
Yes.
So how do you make it bigger?
If we have more household food gardens in the community, if every house has their own household food garden, it means that the entire community would have good food to eat. But if we go through the cooperative models, people can have a label, they can sell off the crops. You know, it can provide some income and some economic independence for the women as relief as well, yes, because it's all mothers, it's people who have families, they don't have a job, and it can provide some income for them as well. So for us it's like a dream coming true. It's like you can see something is happening within the community.
To the stars, live your days, set your spirits free. Feel the rain, it's coming down, falling like tears on stony ground.
When I watch programs like this, I'm always overwhelmed by the dire need for skills and role models in the communities around us. And you don't know what you can do, but actually just sitting there and having these thoughts about what you can do is the first step to becoming an active citizen from being a sofa-bound passive citizen. We all have skills and abilities that we can offer, and it's just a case of actually going out and finding where you can fit in and offer these skills that you have. How would you describe our shared spirituality?
The essence of Judaism is, do not do unto others what you would not have do unto you.
So why do you think we seem to have lost sight of that?
Our spirituality has become quite small. Do we really worry about the lives of other people? Do we worry that our neighbors are having terrible violent attacks and harming one another? How many of us actively do something? And for me, that's what spirituality is about.
And
it's about making sure that I am because you are, and you are because I am. It's the Ubuntu concept. It's the love thy neighbor as thyself concept. It's the doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. We've lost that humanity. And when I come to places like Mavela, when I first came here, and I saw these kids with kwashiorkor, kids stick thin, people dying, and there was nothing here, nothing. And I just couldn't leave it. Not as a human being. I felt so guilty that I had so much. My mother always used to say to me, if you are lucky enough not to have to receive, you must give.
Well, that was Paddy Meskin and the Mavela Initiative. I have to say I'm actually very humbled and embarrassed at what I've done in my community, which is pretty much nothing. And it's amazing what people who work together, communities and religions, can actually achieve when they actually work towards a common goal. Fantastic. How do you conceive of kind of God or your beliefs? Well, does it conjure up a picture in your mind? Just describe it to me. What is this God and Spirit thing?
Yes, maybe I should say when I was very young, I actually put God to the test when I was watching a cricket match. And then I said, God, if you really exist, you will turn this game around. Now, there was no way that the game could be turned around, and I also know it was impossible. And then I said, but today you can prove to me if you really exist. And you won't believe when the first one, when they started bowling, and then immediately he was out. And then the second person came in, one run, and then the other person coming up, and then he was out. And all 6 men, before they could get the 6 balls, they were all out. And for me, that was the answer. I mean, whenever I needed something, when I had to do something, when I asked something, I would get it. When I pray and I ask the Lord certain things, He would really, in a special way, that I would know, you know, that kind of a relationship. That's what I had with Him. So it's not like it's a far away thing. It's a personal relationship. I can feel the connection. I can feel His presence. When I'm praying, I can feel the presence of Him, yes.
Now, how does this kind of personal, kind of religious belief system of yours kind of integrate with the work that you're doing? How does it kind of drive it?
I think there's a command in the Bible that says we must love our neighbor as we love ourselves. That's the second command. And by loving our neighbor is going out and taking care of people. You know, you can't turn a blind eye to things that are wrong out there. So you need to raise your voice about things, because even in the Bible, God isn't happy when there's unfairness that is happening. And that's why I think the moment we stop to care, that's the moment that we stop to live. And that is why we need to go out and do what is expected from us. Because if nobody cares, what will become of the world? If we all turn a blind eye to the things that we see around us. But through God's word, we get guidance. You know, the word is actually telling us what to do, how to love, how to show compassion, you know, how to hope, how to believe. That's all the things that we get in God's word. It's setting out the principles and the steps for us to follow.
In the Hindu scriptures, there is definitely a talk about communal living and so on. But I also believe when you read books about traditional, you know, white communities or traditional African communities and so on, you realize that that whole idea of Ubuntu is not just centered around one community, it's centered around the entire world. If you look deep into your traditions, you find that it's there, but we've lost it over time.
Spiritual intelligence tells me there's nothing more important than loving people.
How do you do that? How do you get people to love one another? I think that is the fundamental problem.
That's the fundamental problem. One of the ways to love people is not to dish up your own culture and put it into your face. But one way to love people is to show what I call social compassion. One way of loving people is to accept other people's cultures, allow other people's cultures to influence you, to enrich you, to take part in cultural festivals of other religious and spiritual groups. That is, for me, what Cultural Home is about. Moving into the space of other people's cultures.
I think it's really about, you know, trying to not get involved in the trappings of this world, and about, you know, chasing something that's beyond us. And sometimes you look at successful people, who may appear to have everything, but they don't have happiness and peace, you know. I think that's only reserved for God. You know, I think if you remember God and you remember His blessings upon you and you do your best to help your community in whatever way, I think in the service of others, that's when you'll find peace. I think it's reserved for that, not anything else.
Do you think we can ever be in South Africa? Do you think we can, with so many different people and belief systems and colours and creeds, do you think we can have a kind of a unified community? Well, not entirely unified, but a community that actually get on well together. And how can we engender that?
We have seen some amazing demonstrations of unity and cohesiveness in South Africa that have been absolutely inspirational. Whether it was standing in the queues of a 1994 election, we've seen people of different colors, races, creeds, everything getting together to build a better South Africa. It seems to be falling apart because on the ground things aren't happening the way they should be happening. We're talking, but we're not walking the talk, you know? Another task team, you know, another great speech, but action. So spirituality is the vision, and religion maybe is the action. And again, I come back to the holistic, to the meshing of these values. There's no reason why we can't do it.
Hindu religion seems to be rich with kind of metaphor and symbolism. And in English, we talk about getting off one's high horse, and they too have it in terms of the horse as a symbol of power. And it's actually, I suppose, it's relinquishing that and actually, I don't know, leaving your ego as well. And now, as I'm coming to the end of my journey, I feel perhaps the core of my being has become more centered, stripped away of these desires and egos. The road is still long, but maybe I'll take the plunge into these symbolic 18 steps. I know there are always many obstacles to overcome, but I'm also aware that my inner quest has deepened and the path to enlightenment is an arduous journey. Moreover, I'm aware of the stirrings of something greater than myself. And now, through the birth canal for my spiritual rebirth.